I'm going to run for the Senate, and I'm going to win. The reason I'm going to win is I got so many people helping me. I've never been more excited about my job than I am right now. I don't think I've ever been better at it than I am right now.
Senator Lindsey Graham has spent decades in the spotlight, but when it comes to where he lives and who, if anyone, shares that space, questions seem to linger. Is there more behind the quiet walls of his home, or is the mystery simply a product of curiosity? Join us in this video as we explore what is known, what isn't, and why speculation about his personal life continues to capture attention. The private life few ever see. For decades, Lindsey Graham has drawn a clear line between his public role and his personal routines. While many high-profile politicians often share glimpses of their families, he has taken a very different path. He has never married, never introduced a long-term partner to the public, and rarely says anything about romance at all. In today's political world, where spouses and family moments are often part of campaigns, that silence feels unusual. It naturally sparks curiosity. That curiosity has led to years of speculation, rumors, and online theories. People tend to fill in the blanks when information is limited. Still, speculation is not the same as proof. Graham himself has repeatedly brushed off claims about a secret partner, describing them as nothing more than gossip. He has stayed consistent in that stance, choosing not to entertain or expand on such conversations. What is actually known about his life is far more grounded. His home in Seneca, South Carolina, is often described as calm and structured. He has spoken about being deeply focused on his work, suggesting that his strongest connections are with longtime friends, colleagues, and extended family members. Those who have observed his lifestyle say it reflects simplicity rather than excess. His residence near the lake is comfortable, with security when needed, but it does not match the luxury people often associate with powerful figures in Washington. If there is more to his personal life, it has been kept extremely private, and that is part of what keeps people interested. Graham comes from a generation of politicians who believed that privacy was not just a preference, but a form of protection. In earlier decades, especially in conservative Southern politics, personal details could quickly become political problems. Keeping certain parts of life out of the spotlight was often seen as necessary for survival. It raises a question that only he can truly answer. Did that environment shape his decision to keep romantic matters completely off limits? Or is this simply a personal choice that has nothing to do with political strategy? Whatever the reason, the approach has clearly worked for him. By sharing very little, he has managed to avoid the kind of tabloid attention that often follows public figures. At the same time, there may not be any hidden story at all. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the correct one. There may be no secret partner, no hidden life waiting to be revealed. Some people genuinely choose to live alone, especially when their careers demand so much of their time and energy. In Graham's case, his role in the Senate, along with constant travel, committee work, and media attention, leaves little room for a traditional personal life. For some individuals, their work becomes their main focus, even their central relationship. Still, mystery has a way of keeping people interested. In today's digital world, not knowing something often creates more attention than having clear answers. Supporters argue that his private life should remain exactly that, private. They believe his work and policies are what truly matter. Critics, however, see it differently. They argue that voters deserve a fuller picture of someone who holds such an important position and seeks to remain in power. Now, in 2026, that spotlight is only getting brighter. Political opponents may try to use unanswered questions to their advantage, while allies will likely emphasize his dedication to public service. They may present him as someone fully committed to his state, rather than to personal ambition or public image. In the end, whether his home in Seneca is shared with someone or simply reflects the routine of a lifelong bachelor, one thing stands out. Lindsey Graham has mastered the art of keeping parts of his life separate. His political moves are visible and often debated, but his personal world remains largely out of reach. That may not be accidental. In modern politics, many leaders open their lives to the public, sharing moments from home to appear relatable. Graham has chosen the opposite route. By holding back personal details, he keeps attention focused on his decisions rather than his relationships. It is a strategy that comes with both advantages and risks. It protects him from certain types of scrutiny, but it also keeps curiosity alive. The less people know, the more they tend to wonder. And through it all, Graham has stayed consistent. He does not feed into rumours or attempt to control the narrative with carefully staged moments. Instead, he remains quiet. As the political season moves forward, voters will decide what matters most. But if history offers any clue, Lindsey Graham will continue doing what he has always done, keeping his private life behind closed doors while facing the public eye on his own terms. But aside from the interest and speculations about his private life, what do we know about Lindsey Graham? Keep watching to find out. Roots, responsibility, and the making of a public life. The story of Lindsey Graham begins in the small town of Central South Carolina, where he was born into a hard-working, close-knit family. His parents, Millie and Florence James F.J. Graham, ran a local establishment known as the Sanitary Cafe, a place that served as more than just a restaurant. It was a bar, a pool hall, and a liquor store, all rolled into one, and it reflected the kind of environment Graham grew up in: busy, practical, and rooted in community. His family background, shaped by Scots-Irish heritage, carried strong values of resilience and independence. After finishing at D.W. Daniel High School, Graham stepped into unfamiliar territory. He became the first in his family to attend college, enrolling at the University of South Carolina. He also joined the Reserve Officers Training Course, setting the stage for a future tied closely to military service. But life took a difficult turn when he was just 21. His mother passed away from Hodgkin's lymphoma at the age of 52.
Is your parents dying when you were 21 or so,
Yeah.
just a few months apart, just a little over a year apart? Just first talk about your mother who died of Hodgkin's disease. What was that like? How long was she sick?
Just over a year later, his father died from a heart attack. Those losses changed everything. Suddenly, Graham was not just a college student, he became the legal guardian of his 13-year-old sister. That responsibility shaped his path in a deeply personal way. He stayed close to home, continuing his studies while stepping into a role that demanded maturity far beyond his years. During this time, he also joined the Pi Kappa Phi fraternity, building friendships that would remain part of his support system. He graduated with a degree in psychology in 1977 and went on to earn his law degree from the same university in 1981. Soon after, he entered the United States Air Force as an officer in the Judge Advocate General's Corps. By 1982, he was on active duty, beginning what would become a long and steady military career. His early assignments included working as a defense attorney for the Air Force. Not long after, he was sent overseas to Rhein-Main Air Base in Frankfurt, Germany. Between 1984 and 1988, he served as the chief prosecutor for the Air Force in Europe. It was during this time that he briefly appeared on 60 Minutes, connected to a case that raised questions about substance testing procedures within the military. When he returned to South Carolina, Graham transitioned into civilian legal work while continuing his service in a different capacity. He worked as an assistant county attorney for Oconee County and later as city attorney for Central. At the same time, he joined the South Carolina Air National Guard and eventually the Air Force Reserve, maintaining a dual track of legal and military responsibilities. During the 1990 to 1991 Gulf War, he was called back to active duty. Stationed at McEntire Air National Guard Base, he helped prepare pilots by briefing them on the laws of war. While there were later public questions about how his service was described, Graham addressed them directly, making it clear that he never claimed to be a combat veteran or war hero. His military career continued to advance. In 1998, he was promoted to lieutenant colonel, and by 2004, he reached the rank of colonel in the Air Force Reserve during a ceremony led by George W. Bush. Around this time, legal questions emerged about whether he could serve as a military judge while holding political office. While a lower court initially allowed it, a higher court later ruled that such a role was improper. Even so, his connection to military service did not fade. In 2007, he spent short periods in Iraq, focusing on detainee issues and legal frameworks. He also traveled to Afghanistan in 2009 during a Senate recess, continuing to engage with matters tied to military law and operations. His experience eventually led to recognition in 2014, when he received a Bronze Star for his service as a senior legal advisor, particularly for his work related to military detainees. After more than 3 decades in uniform, Graham retired in 2015 at the rank of colonel, closing a chapter that had run alongside his political career for years. His service was notable not just for its length, but for the way it overlapped with his time in government. Despite earning credit toward a pension, he did not receive military pay while serving in Congress, in line with federal rules. Looking at this journey, it becomes clear that Graham's life has been shaped by responsibility from an early age, first within his family, then in the military, and later in public office. It also offers a possible lens into his private world. How did Lindsey Graham rise high in politics? Stay tuned to find out. From local politics to national power. The political rise of Lindsey Graham did not happen overnight. It began at the local level in 1992, when he was elected to the South Carolina House of Representatives from Oconee County. In that race, he defeated Democratic incumbent Lowell W. Ross with a solid 60% of the vote. His time in the state legislature was brief, just one term from 1993 to 1995, but it set the stage for something much bigger. In 1994, an opportunity opened that would change his career. Longtime Congressman Butler Derrick announced his retirement, leaving South Carolina's 3rd congressional district wide open. Graham stepped in to run for the seat. With strong backing from influential figures like Strom Thurmond, he secured the Republican nomination, winning the primary with just over half the vote. He then carried that momentum into the general election, defeating Democrat James Bryan Jr. by another 60% to 40% margin. That victory was historically significant. Graham became the first Republican to represent the district since 1877, a sign of the broader political shift happening across the United States at the time. Once in Congress, he quickly established himself as someone willing to engage in tough political battles. By 1997, he was even involved in a leadership challenge against House Speaker Newt Gingrich, showing early signs of his independent streak. His time in the House also placed him at the center of one of the most dramatic political moments of the late 20th century, the impeachment of Bill Clinton. In 1997, Graham supported an early effort to investigate the president, even before the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal fully unfolded. When the situation escalated in 1998, he voted in favor of opening a formal impeachment inquiry and played an active role as a member of the Judiciary Committee. Interestingly, Graham did not follow his party line in every instance. While he supported most of the proposed articles of impeachment, he voted against one count of perjury, making him the only Republican on the committee to break ranks in that way. During the proceedings, he famously asked whether the situation was more like Watergate or something far less serious, capturing the tension and uncertainty of the moment. Ultimately, he went on to serve as one of the House managers during Clinton's impeachment trial, further raising his national profile. Throughout the late 1990s, Graham continued to solidify his position in Congress. He was re-elected multiple times, often by comfortable margins. In 1996, he defeated Debbie Dawn, a candidate with strong political family ties, by 60% to 40%. In 1998, he ran unopposed, and in 2000 he secured another decisive win. These victories reflected not just party support, but also his growing influence within his district. By 2002, Graham was ready for the next step. When Senator Strom Thurmond retired, Graham ran to succeed him. He faced little resistance in the Republican primary and went on to win the general election against Democrat Alex Sanders. With that victory, he became South Carolina's first new U.S. Senator in decades, marking the beginning of a long tenure in the Senate. His political journey did not slow down from there. In 2008, he sought re-election and faced a primary challenge from Buddy Witherspoon. Graham won decisively, carrying nearly every county in the state. In the general election, he defeated Democrat Bob Conley by a wide margin, supported by a significantly larger campaign budget. The 2014 election cycle, however, presented a different kind of test. Graham was seen as vulnerable, particularly among more conservative voters who questioned his willingness to work across party lines. Groups aligned with the Tea Party movement considered challenging him, and for a time, it seemed like he might face a serious primary threat. But once again, Graham showed political skill. No single strong opponent emerged, and his campaign strategy proved highly effective. He built an extensive political network across the state, raised significant funds, and focused heavily on local issues and constituent services. Rather than shifting his positions to satisfy critics, he often confronted them directly, arguing for a broader and more inclusive Republican Party. That approach paid off. He won the Republican primary with a clear majority, defeating several challengers, including State Senator Lee Bright. In the general election, he went on to defeat Democrat Brad Hutto with relative ease, securing another term in the Senate. Looking at this political trajectory, one thing becomes clear. Graham has spent much of his life navigating high-pressure environments, building alliances, and maintaining control over his public image. It's a career defined by strategy, persistence, and adaptability. So how can people who were once political rivals stand strong together? Let's find out. From fierce rivals to political allies. The relationship between Lindsey Graham and Donald Trump is one of the most surprising turnarounds in modern politics. Back in 2016, the two were not allies at all. In fact, they were fierce rivals. Both men were running for president, and their exchanges quickly became personal and heated. At the time, Graham did not hold back. He openly criticized Trump, calling him a jackass and a bigot, and warning that the Republican Party was being misled. His words reflected a deep frustration with Trump's rise and influence.
That he's a jackass.
Really?
That he's bringing his name down and he's not helping the process, and he shouldn't be commander-in-chief.
But Trump responded in his usual style, direct and aggressive. He dismissed Graham as a lightweight and an idiot, turning their disagreement into a full-blown public feud. One moment stood out more than the rest. During a televised event, Trump read Graham's private phone number out loud to a national audience. It was shocking, even by political standards. Suddenly, Graham's phone was flooded with calls and messages from strangers. He later joked that the situation got so out of hand, he had no choice but to get rid of the phone entirely. At that point, it seemed almost impossible to imagine the two men ever working together. But politics has a way of shifting quickly. After Trump won the 2016 election, the tone between them began to change. In 2017, Graham visited the White House for a private meeting with the new president. What started as a simple conversation turned into something more unexpected. They got along. Over time, they found common ground, even bonding over rounds of golf and shared political interests. Graham later explained his shift in simple terms. He believed it was important to support the sitting president, especially one from his own party. What followed was a noticeable transformation. The same man who had once been one of Trump's loudest critics became one of his most reliable defenders in Washington. As their relationship grew stronger, Graham played a key role during major moments of Trump's presidency. He stood by him during high-profile investigations and impeachment proceedings, offering public support when it mattered most. He also worked closely with the administration on shaping the federal judiciary, including helping to confirm Supreme Court nominees. That does not mean they agreed on everything. There were still differences, especially on issues like foreign policy and abortion, but those disagreements rarely turned into public conflict. Instead, Graham maintained his position as a steady ally, choosing cooperation over confrontation. By the time the 2024 election approached, Graham's support was clear and consistent. He appeared at rallies, spoke in Trump's favor, and encouraged voters to back him once again. His message was simple. He believed Trump was the right choice for the country. Now, with Trump back in the White House for another term, Graham remains closely connected to the center of power. His journey from outspoken critic to trusted ally highlights something important about political life. Relationships can change, sometimes dramatically, depending on timing, strategy, and circumstance. In many ways, this shift reflects Graham's broader approach to politics. He has shown a willingness to adapt, to reassess, and to move where influence is strongest. For some, that flexibility is a strength. For others, it raises questions. But either way, it has allowed him to remain relevant and influential over the years. And when thinking about his carefully guarded private life, this pattern adds another layer of intrigue. If Graham can navigate such dramatic public transformations, it makes people wonder what else might exist beneath the surface that the public never fully sees. What do you think of Lindsey Graham and the private life he lives? Let us know in the comments section. In the end, the story of Lindsey Graham reminds us how little we sometimes know about the private lives of public figures. From his quiet home in Seneca to the ongoing questions about who, if anyone, shares that space, the mystery continues to spark curiosity. If this got you thinking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Stay tuned for more as we explore the stories behind the headlines.